Stitch number 24 is the buttonhole stitch shading. Sometimes it's called blanket stitch shading. And it looks like this. In this example I've used several different colors. But you can work it in just one color or use a variegated thread. Here's another example. Because the stitch is very edgy, it doesn't work so well on round shapes. It works better on angular shapes like the X. If you already know the buttonhole stitch, this should be quite easy for you, but if you don't, I'll show you. So I've drawn these lines just to help me get the lines of stitching more or less even. So this will be my bottom line. So I will start on the second line, coming out at one end. And then I insert the needle on my bottom line. And this creates a loop with the thread. And so I come up on the second line, parallel to where I just inserted the needle, and I'm coming up inside that loop of thread so that it's caught like that. And then straight away I'll put my thumb or my finger on the thread to help keep the tension on the stitch I just made. And then I come across on the bottom line a short distance, insert the needle again, and then I come up on the second line inside the loop of the thread. Pull the thread so that it's nice and taut. Needle down on the bottom line, come up on the second line inside the loop of the thread, and you carry on like that till the end of the line. You can distance the stitches as close or as far apart as you want. It doesn't really matter. But of course, the closer they are, the more coverage you will have on the fabric. I quite like it when it's kind of open like this. Right, so when I get to the end of the line, I insert the needle as I have been doing, come up inside the loop of the thread on the second line, pull the thread, and then I insert the needle just outside the loop of the thread to secure it, like that. So you could work the next row going this way, but I prefer to do them all in the same direction. So I'm just going to thread the needle through behind, so I don't have a long bit of thread on the back that I can get the needle caught in. So then I'm back at the other end. So this is the third line that I drew, and I come up at the end of it, and then I insert the needle into, well, not into the stitch, but into the loop of this inverted L shape here of the stitch in the previous row, and then I come up inside the loop of the fabric on the third line, and for the next one I insert the needle in the next stitch, come up on the third line inside the loop, so the only difference really there is between the first and the other rows of stitching is that on the first row there's no previous stitching, obviously. So just carry on filling in the whole thing. So when it's open like this, you don't get as much of the effect of the shading, but it's up to you if you want it closed or not. So now I'm at the end here. Because I've inserted the needle to do the stitch in the middle of the previous stitch here, there's a tiny little gap here. So I'm just going to, instead of finishing the stitch with a tiny stitch, I'm just going to do a slightly longer one so that this stitch lines up with the previous row, like that. So let's try it on the alphabet sampler. On the template I have drawn a suggestion of where you can do the stitches, how far the rows are apart and how far the stitches are apart. You can ignore it or you can follow it if you want. I would suggest drawing lines however close or far apart you want them, just so that you can get a sort of evenly spaced effect. So I come up on the angle here, and then I insert the needle onto the bottom line here of the X, come up inside the loop, insert the needle on the bottom line, come back up inside the loop, and I carry on until I filled the whole row here. Pay attention to the tension of the stitching. You want the stitches to sit right on the fabric. You don't want it to be too loose, because then it might start to unravel. So now here I'm actually at the end of the row, but I still have this little tiny bit in the corner here that I want to stitch on. So I need to decide if I want to just finish the row here and then come back later and do a couple little stitches. But let's see if I can maybe do, yes, if I'm, so I've come up right in the corner here, and then I'm going to come up inside my loop in the same spot where I finished the previous stitch. And then I finish it with a tiny stitch to secure it. And then I'm gonna come back on myself, just securing the thread on the back. Come out on the outside of the outline here. And then because of the angle, it would make a very large stitch if I inserted a needle in the next stitch here. So I'm going to insert the needle right here on the corner where I started the first row, and come up inside the loop like that, and then I can insert the needle into the first of the previous stitches. So again, I am finishing on the line, but I still have a little bit I want to cover here. But I think I'm actually going to just finish it here, and then I'll come back later and fill in with a line of stitching. So if we look here, this is actually what I've had to do. I've come in, so in this case it's a different color. I just picked one of the 4 or 3 colors that I used to do an outline. So this will happen along the left edge here, but you will most likely also have to do it along the right edges. Although this doesn't look too bad. I think I did sort of fill it out, but you can see here that I have some diagonalish stitches, and you can do it like that if you want. But if you notice here, there's actually gaps here and also along the bottom edge. You can leave them as they are, that's totally fine, or you can fill them in as I did here. I think I prefer the shapes to be closed, but they don't have to be. You can do them however you want. So enjoy this stitch, I really like working this. The tutorial you have just watched is part of a series of 31 stitch tutorials that I have made to go along with the pattern for this embroidery stitch sampler. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you want to check out the pattern, you can find the link in the description. And whatever you're making, happy stitching.